So you sent me some questions, some from the fans and some just talking points that you're interviewing yourself here. And I was looking through a few of them we've addressed before and have got rid of them off the list. Now, let me have a look. We've talked about that one recently. We've talked about that one recently. But number 3, how did ECW suddenly take off back in the early days, and where did Paul Heyman get inspiration to book ECW?
Who wrote that? I did.
Well, you sent it me.
Yeah. What's the question now? Where did DEW take off to?
No. Why did ECW take off so suddenly?
Oh,
I was going to say, you wrote me this question. I thought you'd have an answer.
I did. Because ECW, Paul Heyman went to Memphis and studied the Memphis style of booking. And it was wild, and it was out in the crowd. And this was every week. And somebody asked me one time, why did you guys do that wild stuff in Memphis? I said, Guy, we had to draw people the next week. We ran Memphis 52 times a year. So you have one bad TV, guess what? They lose interest. They don't come. Now, you have 2 weeks like that or 3 weeks like that. Now you're really on your butt. Now you're having to rekindle stuff that you may have planned later on down the line. But he took that stuff from Memphis, and he took it back to Philadelphia, which I call a virgin area, virgin territory. And he showed them there, and they fell in love with it. So then he got in that little bingo hall and did all this crazy stuff. And he would seat like 1,000 people, but they were live. Then he got his TV going, and they took off. But he got his inspiration for that type show from the old Memphis territory. So there's blood and guts.
Now, ECW wasn't a territory strictly speaking, not like Smoky Mountain or USWA in the 90s, because they only ran weekends. And they wouldn't do regular. They go to the ECW arena every few weeks, I think, and then they do spot shows the rest of the weekends here, there, and everywhere. In the first few years, they were drawing a couple of hundred people. They were struggling just as much as everyone else were. But why did ECW end up gaining in popularity and building on the business where USWA couldn't during that time frame?
USWA had been there for, I guess, probably at the time they went out of business, they had been as a company, not USWA, but it was just, they referred to it as just wrestling. People didn't say, the name of the company. They say wrestling or wrestling. And everybody knew what they were talking about. And USWA didn't decline all on its own because it was the growth of WCW and WWF. Because that's like saying, how you going to keep them happy down on the farm after they've seen the big lights of Broadway? And when they saw what WWF, they brought it there, the lights and the music, and then even the WCW, it's the same thing. So you had two companies, and then Channel 5 was like just a TV studio type, and it wasn't exciting like it was before. They had more choices, and they chose to go with either WWF or WCW.
So why?
That's why.
Yeah, but I mean, the people in Philly will have been watching WWF and WCW as well. But was it just purely because they hadn't had a territory there for decades?
Yes, but see, you got to study styles now. The WWE style for years and years and years. Actually, right when Vince took it over, the style was slow and plodding. I mean, they'd have these guys that were like 40, 45 years old, weigh about 300 pounds. They weren't fast. They weren't taking any bumps. They were just caricatures of what they used to have, like the Germans and the Japanese guys and maybe a gay guy or something. You really can't do that stuff now. But when he got to guys that could do a little more, like the Sandman. Sandman would go to the ring every week, drunker than hell, but the people loved him. So that's what he had in his favor. At the same time, Philadelphia, on their TV station, Philadelphia has a population of about 4 million in the metro area, I guess, maybe more. You know what the metro population of Memphis was?
Wasn't it like 600-700, something like that? Or am I going crazy there?
And this extends out about 80 miles from the center of the TV station, and it would go over in Arkansas and Mississippi, and maybe almost all the way to the tip of Kentucky. But they had a viewership of about, back in the day, it would have probably 500,000-600,000 people. But the metro area of Memphis only had like 400,000. But I'm talking about 60 miles out that the TV signal would cover. Mm-hmm. But look at Philadelphia when they were there. Had 4 million people, and they would still only put 1,000 people in there, and they didn't run every week. Mm-hmm. So they would run, I don't know what, once a month, once every 6 weeks.
Yeah, probably once every like 3 for TV tapings, or every 4 weeks.
Memphis ran once a week on Monday nights for years.
Philadelphia's metro population is now, anyway, 6,245,000. So yeah, it's a far bigger.
We'll take a million off that for the last 10 years.
Yeah,
we about got it.
Very quickly before we shut this podcast down, with the relative success at the time, in 96, 97, with ECW's formula of more hardcore blood and guts and all that kind of thing, did USWA ever look at that and think, man, we really need to start like ramping up the violence here? Or would that just not have played in the area?
They were used to it. Listen, it was talent that you could get. If you had talent, you were looking to go to WWF, or a wrestler was looking to go to WCW, or even ECW. Nobody was really dying to go to Memphis because the business. I mean, the money wasn't there, and they wouldn't give you a guarantee because hell, they were losing money. So it was just at a plane to where it was going for that soft landing of going out of business.